So just to give a little bit of background of what I know about you and then give you a chance to introduce yourself. You are a school librarian in Texas. Um, you have previously worked in the Braunfels ISD, which is another school district in Central Texas. You're also very present online. You do these really great book reviews. And in them, your passion for reading and for literacy comes through. You're a model for readership for as a librarian. And I saw another interview where you talked about the importance of for librarians of keeping up with the publishing industry. And it's clear that that's not just a professional responsibility for you, that that's actually something you take joy in. And I think that comes through. And you've been winning awards. You were named a 2026 Mover and Shaker by Library Journal, and ISTE named you a librarian to watch earlier this summer. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And then you just started a podcast. So the library stage, which I'll give you time to talk about it, but you're going to use it, I think, to highlight the other great work that librarians are doing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, but this year has not been all sunshine and light for you. Um, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that you've personally gone through. But I also want to talk about some of the laws that are making the work of librarians more challenging here in Texas. But before we do that, so I do want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. Tell me like what brought you to your work as a librarian, what keeps you doing this work as a librarian.
Yeah, so this has been, the hardest year of my life, even awards notwithstanding. Was a middle school library media specialist in the district that I grew up in of New Braunfels ISD, and I currently am a resident of New Braunfels. And last year, when Senate Bill 12 and Senate Bill 13 passed and went into effect, I had no idea the ramifications that was going to have on my community, on our district, with my students, and ultimately my job. Because I was as outspoken as I felt I could be, talking about some of the things that were happening that I felt were handled in the wrong way, that went against our school board policy, that were targeting certain groups of people to make sure that we were seeing less and less of their books on the shelves. And I obviously I have a platform, and no one else in my district did. And I felt it, I guess, a responsibility to use that platform as best I could to share what was happening. It's such a tough line to walk, since I am employed by that district, but I was employed by that district, but at the same time, I felt like everything we'd ever been taught in library school, in professional development, and conferences we went to, this went against all of that, everything that I had been taught as a library media specialist. So, I felt like that needed to be shared and documented, and I so appreciate the work that Texas Freedom to Read Project has done to help keep all of that stuff documented for the future.
Well, let's kind of dive straight in then. So a volunteer with Texas Freedom to Read Project filed a public information request earlier this year, asking the district for titles that had been removed. And we received back information that hundreds of books had been weeded, about 600 books removed from the high school level, and about 800 were sent from the middle schools, were either removed from the middle schools or sent up to the high school level. With the explanation given in most cases as weeded Senate Bill 13. That was in addition to another 455 titles, a separate list of books that were flagged with AI as being in possible violation with Senate Bill 13, and about half of those were eventually removed. Um, so can you kind of detail, go behind that information request and explain what was going on there, what you saw as a librarian in the district?
Yeah, so I, kind of had a front row seat to all of this because at the time, at the beginning of the year this summer, when we were getting everything prepped, I was the secondary lead librarian for the district. So it was my job to do research on what other districts are doing, how we're handling it. As you know, we were given zero, direction on how to take all of this. And so we were doing the best we could, using resources from Leander ISD, like Becky Calzada, and then Northside ISD. And so we were just trying to kind of see how everyone was handling it. And then we took what we could and shared that with our district. We felt like our superintendent, our chief of schools, and academic officer, all of those people we were all on the same page. However, upon attending the first board meeting where this was brought up in August, it was kind of clear that the board was not on the same page of trusting librarians, of leaning on our expertise and the training that we had in this area. I find it so funny that school board members tend to be people that have nothing to do with education, have no history or background, especially in libraries. And so in September, when that went into effect, we thought we would get, our first round of books approved. Due to some bonds that we had gotten, we had money, a good chunk of money that needed to be spent at the high school level. And so obviously we went in with like 12,000 titles, and that was overwhelming as well. I understand that. However, even weeding them down, taking out the bond books just for like another time to be approved, that still was not getting approved. And that's when we started to be like, oh, wait, this is going to be a bigger deal than we thought it was. So, as we moved into then October, that is when the school board decided to shut down the secondary libraries to do an audit of our entire collection, which did go beyond the scope of what Senate Bill 13 was written for, which was that everything before September 1st was supposed to be grandfathered in. And so, obviously, them closing our libraries completely, not giving kids access, making it seem like the library is a bad and scary place, was horrifying. It happened right at the time of AASL conference in St. Louis, where I was supposed to present on the second edition of the school library standards that I had helped curate and create. And so, those two things happening at the same time, like, I am somebody in this field that knows library standards so well. I helped write a book on it. To they don't even trust me to purchase titles for my middle school library, right? And so those two things were just so insane to me happening at the same time. Our community did come together and they showed up at a special board meeting at the end of October and sort of demanded that the libraries were reopened, and they did. Um, and a lot of community members thought, okay, that's it. Yay, we won. Libraries are back open. But really, it was just the beginning. The school board decided to use an AI tool, several AI tools over the course of the time, such as Bookmarked. And we all know that Bookmarked is biased and geared toward a certain type of censorship. And I feel like trusting AI over certified school librarians. Every single one of our librarians has their master's degree, and that is a requirement to be hired in the district. And so it was just a slap to the face, and we continued to see reports sent to us. These books have been flagged in AI, and it was titles like Wonder by R.J. Palacio that should not be flagged because guess what? AI is not work in that way. It is searching for Senate Bill 13 language in any way that it can, and it was pulling out titles that just did not fit that criteria whatsoever. So we were scrambling, and I'm sorry, but the middle school had it the worst. It is a really hard age to serve our little 11-year-olds coming in, all the way up to my 14 and 15-year-olds that are ready for more mature content. We have YA stickers on books that have that young adult content in it. We do a lot of training at the beginning of the year of this is how you choose a book, talk to your parents. And Senate Bill 13 was written with the parents in mind to give them the power to see their kids' checkouts, to block certain titles. But our school board took it in the hands to believe that they were then in charged with this task, and that is not the case, unfortunately. But that is what they did. And so for months, we continued to pull books off the shelf, send them to the high schools. The high schools pulled books. We had all of our AP titles locked away in closets at the high schools. Um, and at the end, it was very much, we had no transparency with our public. Like I said, most people were like, "Oh, the library's open. Y'all are all good. Thanks. Awesome." And really, it was so hard to not be able to share all of the things that were happening. I had stacks and stacks of books like lined up in boxes to send to the high school or to Weed and we really, at the end of the year, and it took until the May board meeting for the district or the board to actually agree to purchase a bare minimum list of titles, like for Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Dog Man and, books like that. And by then it was too late, right? Like we had already spent our budget. So we went a whole school year without our students having access to new titles. And that was hard. And then at the June board meeting, they agree or decided to go against our parent and community committee for the first challenge. We've had our first challenge in 25 years. And it was for Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson, and the committee wholeheartedly, unanimously agreed to keep that title at the high school, and the board overrode them and decided to ban it. So that's kind of where it is right now. But I am no longer with the district, which is why I feel a little bit more confident being able to speak on what happened. But again, there's so much that occurred during this past school year that was just mind-boggling and that no one really knew about. And it's because of the fear of us losing our jobs that we couldn't share any of it.
I want to drill down a little bit on the details of the books that were weeded. So, was you said you were asked to pull books throughout the course of the year and they were listed as weeded. Are those the books that are showing up on our public information request as weeded Senate Bill 13?
Yes, they started the year with this idea, like in October after the libraries closed. They wanted us to keep track of every single book that we took out of our circulation. And at the time, I thought, oh my gosh, like, I mean, if you can imagine, as a librarian, we're used to the autonomy of being able to decide what is weeded, how it's, and not give an explanation. This spreadsheet, as you saw with the PIR, is so detailed. It's, ISBN, it's the title, the author, the series, why we weeded it, who weeded it, a timestamp. Like we had to do that for every single book. And a lot of them did, it was because of Senate Bill 13 or because my other middle school librarian and myself were on the phone with each other every single day saying, okay, I saw this title. I went through and guess what? Now Mackin or school library or Follett say that it should be 10th and up. And where when we purchased it, it was recommended ninth and up or 14 and up or 8th and up, however. And so we were constantly having conversations of whether to age up. And we had been told in meetings, we are erring on the side of conservative. If you think that even one review or one, suggestion from a publisher says it should be older, then it's going to go to the high school. So not only were we told that, we were also like self-censoring a little bit because we were terrified. We were like, we're going to lose our job if this book, and like if I had the book and she didn't, or she had the book and I didn't, we had to have those conversations as well because there's only two of us. And our district is very much about equity, and it was hard to make those decisions. But yeah, we had to list the reason for every single thing. So you'll see a lot of them are listed replacement, which means that we sent it up to the high school. Now, is that banning? I think so, because I'm taking away the access of that to my middle school students for which the age does fit their needs. A third of my campus turns 14 years old in a school year, and we were taking hundreds and hundreds of titles away from them.
Yeah, I mean some of the books that are on the middle school list include like Hemingway, and I started reading Hemingway in seventh grade. It was a gift from my grandmother. She gave me a set of his books, and that's part of what set me on the path to being a reader for the rest of my life. It was like, wow, I'm reading serious literature. I feel like I can, connect with the great big world. And
Yeah.
but I
And
was in seventh grade, and
Exactly. And the funny thing about that is 7 years ago, our reading curriculum specialist specifically told me and the other middle school librarian at the time that we needed to create a classics AP literature section in our libraries because our district wasn't producing any national merit scholars. And it's because they weren't reading critically and reading difficult text at eighth grade when they were ready to do that. And so we did. We spent a bunch of money, bought all these books, and then fast forward 7 years, and they were like, anything labeled adult, anything classics, it's going up. And even then, I don't know if they got to have them at the high school.
Right. And yeah, because now it looks like the AP Lit books in the high school level are restricted, and we don't know if they have access to those, right?
Right. I believe now they're out of the closet, but they are kept restricted, and you have to like prove that you're in an AP class or something ridiculous like that.
And just to clarify, so this you felt pressured to age books up. Was this something that you had felt in previous years?
No.
Okay, so this was a new thing.
Yes.
Okay. And this was not your normal weeding routine. This was not.
No, we did not. And at the time, I was like, oh my God. Like, I literally all year long, I was like, that spreadsheet is my op. It is taking up so much of my time of the day. Like, well, this whole process, I didn't get to do programming. I didn't get to do fun events that I normally do. Like, this whole thing took up every second of my life and then some outside of work. And so I was hating the spreadsheet. But then at the end, when y'all were able to do a PIR for it, it was very handy because it does have every single book on there that, we were supposed to. I did. I'm hoping that everyone else did too, so that we could really see a full picture of what was taken out. But no, if a book needed to be weeded, I was trusted as a librarian to handle that myself using my professional judgment.
Okay. And then you've definitely already touched on this, but I just want to make it clear and get it on the record. Does the process that you engaged in this year, does it reflect your expertise, your experience, your professional judgment?
No, like the way that they wanted us to, it was like we were in trouble constantly. It's like every meeting we had, it was we were in trouble. Me specifically too, because I'm going to push back on the things that I have been taught and and having grown up in this community, I know that these books that they're making me pull, I've had them on the shelves for 10 and 12 years with no complaints and no issues, right? And I think all of it just goes to show that it is very politically motivated. It is very much not just about the books. I mean, it's funny, but then I think that it was just a perfect storm. Senate Bill 13 dropped at a time when my board was wanting to make a statement of some sort, wanting to um, I have a few on the board that are politically motivated and are running for other offices. And so I feel like that had a bit to do with it. But as far as like, it was just the worst timing across the board. And I've never ever had to follow any of these procedures or protocols in the past. And we have, like I said, hadn't had a challenge in 25 years. So,
Okay. Um, so one set of responses to this story. So when our story dropped, it got a lot of conversation, a lot of responses. One set of responses has been to blame the librarians for these mass removals. So on one hand, you had people saying that this was malicious compliance, that
mhm.
librarians were pulling books in order to make the law look bad or to make the school board look bad. An- Another group said that this was poor judgment on the part of librarians, and I actually had a state rep on social media say that this showed that AI can do the job better than librarians can. How do you respond? How do you respond to that? And my cat has brought his toy in here, so you might.
Oh, love it, love it. So to the first point, I, more than anyone, and you'll see on my social media, hate Senate Bill 13 and Senate Bill 12 for different reasons, but I've been very vocal about, and I don't know any other librarian in the state of Texas that enjoys this bill, that thinks this bill is a good idea. Um, but never would I pull books to the detriment of the students that I'm there for, the students that I fight for, that I work with every single day, that I see and I counsel and I talk to and I recommend titles to. Never would I have them be the victim of me trying to prove a point. That is not the bill, honestly, I think speaks for itself. Like anybody that reads that bill, it is the most vague, ridiculous thing I've and just talk to a librarian. I don't need to pull books to make that to show how crazy that bill is. Like it is in and of it. Anybody with two brain cells, I think, can figure out that this bill is for it is targeting certain groups of people and trying to say that um, certain people, like how they live their life, should be sexualized or that. And it's funny because now we're hearing from a lot of the people in the Senate and the House that they felt like Senate Bill 13 wasn't strict enough. And honestly, it's insane to me. Because I don't know how, I mean, I do know how much more strict they can be, but I would never do that to my students at my school, pull books to make national news to show how crazy the bill is. I don't believe that that does anybody any good, and it really just harms the kids. There was enough that we were having to do anyway that was harming them without me adding to that. So no, I don't know any librarian that would do that. We hate this bill, and to pull more books because of this bill is just that's like doesn't make sense to me. And then also that AI can do it better. Well, I have many spreadsheets this past year that show just how untrue that is. AI, even using like the Senate Bill 13 language in the AI tool that we started with in the district that was made up by one of our technicians, it proved to not be. And then we went up, right? We went to bookmarked, which is also skewed for its own reasons. And then we went up to Luma, which is a AI tool out of Florida, is what we were told. And so all of that to say, that they all made mistakes. No matter how fine-tuned we got, no matter how many iterations of this AI that we created or that we used or that they spent, I don't know how much money on, it continued to make mistakes and it continued to show it was pulling from like Amazon and Goodreads reviews instead of actual like literal journal, like literary journals that we use, school library journal, Hornbook. Like it was just using certain words that it would find out. And and again, the mistakes were a lot, but it also doesn't have the know-how of like the know of our community. It doesn't know that, what we also look for is gaps in our collections. We look for to make sure that every student is represented on the shelves, as well as students getting experience from other people in other walks of life that they might not know about. And that creates empathy, right? So there's a lot of things that we take into account that AI simply just cannot do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And even if the list of 455 books that were selected by AI, it's such a weird list, right?
It is. It's so random.
Desire, and it didn't make any sense to me at all.
It did not. Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so I do want to know. So the books that were sent to the high school were sent to the high school. What about? Do you know what happened to the books that were removed? What happened to all those titles?
The ones
Or
that we pulled, like that had the list on the website, those are just like we did in general.
so what does that mean? Like where are the books? Do they?
So when we weed, generally we do it, I mean, it might have changed or will change, but we do the black bag policy. So in a normal year, when I weed, I put them on a cart. I put them out in the hall for free books for kids. I give them in the teacher's workroom. If they want free books, I use them for like low tech makerspace activities, like or I use them for blackout poetry in April. So we use them in a lot of ways. However, when we're pulling these books now because of inappropriate content, I can't put them in the hall for free. I can't give them away to teachers. I can't use them. So we had to black bag them, which is getting black trash bags, marking out the barcode and any identification, putting them in there, and then sending them to the trash. And that's what we did. So, yeah.
And then one last question on the subject, and then we'll move on to the other stuff we want to talk about. But can you talk about the impact to your kids? to the kids in the middle schools in New Braunfels ISD, to the kids in the high schools or the elementary schools? Like what has been the impact of your response to this law, to the things that you were asked to do
Um,
when
it
it
was really hard. To when the library was closed and then while it was closed and then when it reopened, to have so many kids, oh well, the library's closed because Miss Hunt has inappropriate books in there, or that we can't go in the library because they think that y'all are we're banning books, or like, Miss Hunt, I know you banned Harry Potter or Diary of Anne Frank, like those kinds of, and it was just all misinformation. Obviously, they're repeating it from their parents, from their friends. We never had clear communication from the district to parents. I feel like throughout this entire year, this process in general, we were not transparent. So, of course, they're going to use anything that they're told and they're going to run with it. And so we had rumors that we still have. Obviously, you were at the PTA conference this weekend, and they're still saying all kinds of horrible things about me, about librarians in general. That we have this, nefarious plan to, expose kids to just inappropriate content all the time without actually taking any of these books and reading them in their entirety and taking them as a whole and looking at literary merit and all of that stuff. So that was really hard for me to have to constantly debunk these crazy conspiracy theories from students. Um, but then, like, my circulation numbers never recovered after we were closed. There was too much, I guess, the rumors of what they can and cannot check out. There was just less time coming to the library because we had been closed, and then my teachers got off of a rhythm, and then we had testing. And so, like, I am used to having 11 to 13,000 books circulated in a school year. I think I had 8,000 this year, and that's like the lowest it's ever been. And when I ran reports, I could see like how awful my circulation statistics were. And I really do think it has to do with the rumors and then just the library being closed in general in October. Um, and so that was really hard. But I also have my students that love reading, whose parents support them reading. And I even had several of them speak at the board meeting when we were reopening the libraries. I have one in particular that did her end of year eco art project surrounding censorship and book banning. And she is fantastic and so well spoken. And because of this happening, she has now found a cause that she wants to champion and that she wants to fight for, and has made it very clear that she is willing to go speak at anything, protest anywhere. And so I am just so grateful to my library aides who saw all of this happen real time, who had to help me pull these books, who were so mad they would write letters to the newspaper about how insane this was because they saw it and they were going home and telling their parents, and their parents wrote letters to the board. And so I just, they were really the only ones who knew, right? Because the other kids weren't coming in as often, even though I do have big readers. They didn't know the ins and outs of what it looks like to ban and remove hundreds of titles. So my group of library aides this year, like, they'll have that experience, and all of them I feel very passionate about not wanting to have any of this happen again. And so they'll have that experience going into life for forever and remember it. But it was just really, really hard all the way around to see reading be so politicized, and these kids are the victims of it, unfortunately.